So, I am Carter Wild, and what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about pit bulls. This is part of a series where basically I talk about a dog, a breed, or a particular variety of breeds, and talk about my personal experience on them and my experience as a professional. And I expect that this particular one is going to get me a lot of heat. So the first thing is that there's people that don't like to use the term pit bulls. So people prefer to use very specific breed terminology. They want to call them Staffordshire Terriers, or they want to call them APBTs, American Pit Bull Terriers, or any variety of those things down the road. Now, I personally think that those are potentially important distinctions for people who are purchasing a dog or adopting a dog or anything, but I don't think that it matters that much. Let me explain why. I think that in any particular variety of these breeds, you're gonna find extreme examples of what I'm gonna talk about today. So regardless if it's an APBT or it's a Staffy, you could have a really, really extreme dog or one that's not so extreme. And even in any of these breed examples that I give, you'll have more variance between two dogs that are the same breed than potentially two dogs that are of different breeds. So you may find a dog, you may find an APBT that's more similar to a bull terrier, two specific individuals, than two random bull terriers that you pull, or two random APBTs that you pull to examine. So I think that's why I'm talking about them in this big overarching thing. I'm 100% sure that some people are gonna try to beat me up on this, and whatever. I'm interested in having the conversation with them too. Another thing to recognize is that even though I might say some things that you don't like, if you like pit bulls, or if you like APBTs, or if you like Staffies, or if you like bull terriers, something that you might not like, let it be known that I personally love pit bull type dogs, and I'm not just saying that. I literally have pit bulls tattooed on my body, dogs that I have raised and loved for my entire life, and for me, that is they're amazing creatures. So, going to my personal experience first with pit bulls and pit bull type dogs, in somewhere around 2005 or so, 2004, 2005, I got my first pit bull, which was Spike. Spike was an APBT type dog, so taller, narrower, very trim. He was probably a little bit bigger than a breed standard APBT. Maybe he was I'm not actually sure what the breed standard is, but he was maybe in like the 65 pound range, and that was like pet weight. He was probably a little bit overweight. So if he was really trim and tight, he might have been like 55 or something like that, or maybe high 50s. I think that historically the dogs were lighter weight than that, and there's reason for that. We'll get to it. He was what I guess like at the time, he was kind of a scary looking dog. He's jet black. I got him from the pound. His name was Spike. None of that helped. But he was my homie. He was my roll dog. He was my apple scrapple, and he shaped me into the trainer that I am today. He had zero dog aggression, none. He even was what some people would call cold, which means that even if he were to be attacked by another dog, he would still not fight back. So it's not a desirable trait for a dog that's probably like living in like a more natural environment where there's a lot of other dogs in competition and so forth, or not a good look for a dog that was bred for fighting. So he obviously wasn't a good example of a game dog. Now, he did like to wrestle and he liked to play and stuff like that, but when it got down, when another dog was really being aggressive towards him, he wanted no parts of it. So we'll fast forward to the next dog that I personally own, which is Kelsey. That's the dog on the inside here. Kelsey is actually a mix. So she is, we affectionately call her the Tiger Pig. She is a Pitbull, Rottweiler, Catahoula Leopard dog, and a boxer. So, and she's legit like 25% of each, which is kind of crazy. Oftentimes when we do these genetic tests, we find all sorts of different variations of quantity, but she had 4 grandparents and that's who they were. She is a different sort of dog. She's much more forward than Spike was. They did know each other, and that's pretty cool. She in her prime, I'd say she don't take shit from nobody. She was a serious dog, and she had quite a bit of animal aggression, where it not dog aggression though. She's pretty good around dogs, unless they tried to puff up on her, show a little bravado, try to mount her. All that stuff was very bad news for Kelsey, and she wasn't afraid to get down. She isn't, as she's gotten older, she's calmed down a bit. Now, that's a mixed breed. Anything can happen with those dogs. You really have no idea what a mixed dog is. But that's just a little bit of background that lets you know that I love pit bulls, and I'm not talking out of school here. I've had them personally. When I started dog training, around that time that I got Spike, which was like 2004, 2005, I was mainly taking on clients in Baltimore City from people who were probably, some of my clients were well off, but I had a lot of clients who were kind of lower socioeconomic status. And the reason for that was because I was super cheap. I would train any dog, and I would go anywhere for like $25 a session. So this was maybe $20 a session. I literally would go anywhere to meet a dog. And I got myself in some hairy situations. For the most part, I would take on a dog no matter what people told me the problem was, and specifically with human aggression and dog aggression. So I kind of cut my teeth, so to speak, with pit bull type dogs with dog aggression and human aggression in Baltimore City. So that may tell you a little bit about my particular, I guess, my background, but the things that I found out and learned about pit bulls throughout my last 20 years of training are pretty fun. So I'll go into the specific dogs. I've trained quite a few varieties of American Pit Bull Terriers, even in that one particular breed. So APBT, American Pit Bull Terrier, is one of my absolute favorite breeds, and one of the reasons why is because of their just sheer athleticism. They are absolute units. I mean, total gymnasts of a dog, and they can jump high, they can run fast, and they love to play, and they are just incredibly passionate creatures. Now, you can have one of these dogs if you live in a small house or apartment or whatever. It just means that you have to get out and do some exercise with the dog. People get into different sports with these dogs. They are particularly fun to play tug with and other types of activities that like really get them riled up, but in a controlled way. There's other people that do weight pulling and like these climbing type events. People take them, have done agility with them, different protection sports. I don't think, dock diving, I can't think of anything that they wouldn't excel at. There's potential shortcomings, and those things are probably in the variety of behavior versus physicality. Now, they do have a tendency, and like I said, some people might not like to hear this. It seems crazy to me, but they do have a particular tendency or perspicacity, a higher likelihood of becoming dog aggressive or being dog aggressive. And honestly, it's not that crazy because that's what they were bred to do. People might not want to hear that, but in the United States, the American Pit Bull Terrier that we created throughout the last couple hundred years was specifically for the purpose of betting on dog fights. Now, I don't have a huge understanding of dog fighting as a sport. I read a couple books on it, but because I felt like it was important if you're training pit bulls to have a background on it. But what I have learned about it is that there was a whole amazing kind of culture that went into it, and it's hard for us to imagine because we live in a time period now where it's so taboo to talk about or to see it and so forth. But if you can take what we know and the morality and the ethics and so forth out of it, I have no idea how you could do that. However, it was being done frequently enough that they came up with a set of standards for these dogs, and they wanted dogs that were game, specifically dead game, which what they refer to game dogs, referring to a dog that will not let go of the bite until either the other dog is dead or they're dead. And most people who were fighting these dogs were not trying to have their dog die. So what they would do is break them up. So after one person gave up, they would break the dogs up, and they would and then they would either go their separate ways. One person would nurse their dog back to health, and the other dog would win whatever prize it was. One of the important things there that I was told by kind of dog men, as it were, of the past, is that particular moment when they broke up the fight is why they had to make sure that those dogs were not human aggressive. So you had to be able to go in, grab the dog, and take them out of there at a really insanely high state of arousal, and the dog not redirect on you. So it's a backwards way of kind of looking at it, but if the dog would turn around and attack the person, then they probably wouldn't breed that dog again. Therefore, they ended up with dogs that were not very human aggressive and were highly dog aggressive. So that's not the same dog that we have now, especially because those things aren't tested as often. Thank God, most people that are breeding APBTs are just doing stuff with them, like sport stuff with them, and not necessarily doing hopefully they're not doing any kind of dog fighting or anything like that. So that's just an interesting, it's an interesting concept there. Now, Staffordshire Terriers, I know less about because I've probably trained somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 of those. Although, with Pit Bulls, American Pit Bull Terriers, I'm probably probably to 100 or a couple hundred or something like that. Especially if you count group classes and things in there. Staffies, I've had very similar situations with, although probably, honestly, I think I've had as much percentage of dog aggression with them as well. It doesn't mean that they can't be really amazing dogs. and it doesn't mean that just because they have dog aggression that they aren't really amazing dogs. It's just a part of the dog. Now, it is, I think, like, the argument would be that if you raise them in a certain way, you could avoid the dog being dog aggressive. And for pit bulls that have been genetically selected to be more dog aggressive, I find it unlikely that that is true. Again, I'm sure I'll get some heat for that, but I think it's unlikely that you'll get genetic aggression out of a dog. I've been doing this for a long time. I've done a lot of different methods of doing that, from really like compulsive methods to positive reinforcement based methods to long-term desensitization based methods to even like pharmacological solutions, and none of them really did the trick, right? The solution is always in training, management, and teaching the owners how to manage and keep their dog safe. The Staffordshire Terriers that I've met are a little bit smaller, right? So there's a smaller dog than your APBT, much lower to the ground. And as far as I know, it's just an kind of an amalgamation of dog breeds that they built mostly in the United Kingdom for a very similar purpose, or for sporting with other animals as well. So I think that there was more of a component with other aggression, other type aggression, like basically they maybe were doing small animals and so forth, and terrier work versus kind of like dog fighting. So if you know a lot about them, I'm sure you'll tell me that there's a lot more to it. I'm sure there is, but I haven't trained, like I said, I haven't trained as many of those. I've trained pit bulls in the 100 to 200 range of pit bulls, maybe 20 to 30 staffies, and 500 mixes of all those things, maybe more. I don't know, maybe 1,000 of mixes of all those things. That kind of goes into what we call the bully breed category. And your bully breeds, or your American bullies, stuff like that, is just like dogs that kind of exemplify some of these characteristics, but we're not sure what their genetics are. And that could be mixed with Mastiffs or Boxers or Cane Corsos or Dogo Argentinas or a million different things. And those dogs have a even wider variety of character traits. So who would be a good owner of these dogs? It's really anyone. It's a person who knows what they're getting into, right? And what you're getting into is not necessarily dog aggression. If we had to go for this, I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 20%, maybe less. 20% of them have been dog aggressive, the ones that I've met. Tons of them are friendly, and that's an example of breeding for dogs that are friendly versus breeding for dogs that are aggressive. So if we're again, so that means there's 80% of those dogs that I've met actually weren't dog aggressive. So you still have a good propensity, a good chance to not get that, although 20% might be too high of a chance for you anyway. A person who would want to get one of these dogs is just going to have to be willing to put in the effort. They have to know that the dog they're getting is a very high energy dog. High energy and very strong. So a problem with, say a Jack Russell, where the Jack Russell's pulling on the leash and maybe jumping on somebody, is just exaggerated 10x when you talk about that same issue with a pit bull. Even if a dog is super friendly, he's pulling on the leash and he's jumping on somebody, it's a big problem with a dog that's 60 pounds or even 50 pounds and like jacked and just wiry and who even scares people. So that's something to consider. any just regular obedience issue becomes a really big issue if you have a dog that's strong. And that we could put all sorts of different dogs in this category. But a dog that is that strong, that has that doesn't have good obedience, is gonna really mess with really mess with your well-being and the people around you. So it's super important to put obedience on these dogs. They can be incredible, fun, friendly, loving, the most amazing creatures to be around. It's just a matter of if you want the energy level and drive. In terms of if you're actually doing a sport with the dog, like if you get the dog to do a particular sport, I don't know which sport would be the one that I would say is like totally ideal for them. I'd have to imagine that they would excel at kind of agility type stuff. They can be super fast, so you might have fun doing something like fast cat or dock diving or other sports like that. It's probably less common to find people to do weight pulling and things of that nature. You could do dry land mushing or something of that nature. They have pretty incredible stamina, obviously just incredible athleticism everywhere. They're beautiful dogs. All the ones that I've had have been just like snuggle bugs, want to get under the covers with you and get as close to you as possible. They've all been super protective and of the household and of my other animals and things like that. I have no problem with them as dogs that come to me as a trainer. We have no problem with them in our facility. I'm a big fan. Maybe there's some health conditions that you might want to think about. It's going to probably be on the skin condition side because of their short hair, and they tend to have just kind of sensitive skin. APBTs definitely, potentially bull terriers as well. White dogs have much higher. They have lower pigment in their skin, which means that they tend to have a higher variety of sensitivities to things that they could get, whether that's irritation or allergies or whatever. So those are things to think about. Both of my pit bulls have actually had some degree of skin conditions, so that's something too. Other than that, though, I love them. I love when people bring them to me. I love when people bring me pit bull puppies to train. There's nothing like a pit bull puppy that's cranked up, wants to work with you, wants to have fun. And I've seen some incredible obedience on pit bulls just in general on the internet and in real life, and I've put some really good obedience on pit bulls. The thing that I remember Michael Ellis saying was the more rules he put on, he tried to get pit bulls to do bite work for him for a while, and he said the more rules that you put on them, the less they wanted to do the sport, the activity. So they were more about like high arousal, fun, than they were about the work. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. If you want to learn more about this breed or another breed, or just watch me do more cool stuff with dogs, please follow me, subscribe here, and look for new videos. Thanks a lot.